Have you ever made a bad decision in your practice? Well, straight ahead, we have a doctor who is candid about some of his mistakes and how they helped him to redirect his practice.
The things that you go, you really did that? Why would you in the world did you make that decision?
Thanks for joining us for the SIDECAR podcast. A good day to you. I'm PK here with Dr. Nathan Unruh, and we're going to talk about what it's like to have a good practice, but yet I think it's in that self-analysis that you find out there's things that you've done wrong, or maybe you know that you don't want to do those things again that give you that wisdom. So maybe it's that hard look, right, Dr. Unruh? But there's some things that you personally have learned too over the years that you thought you'd share today.
Yeah, these are the things that we never like to talk about because they sting a little bit. The things that you go, you really did that? Why would you in the world did you make that decision, you moron? And, these
and
are
that's
the
just
things
you
that
talking to
we
yourself.
usually get to talk. Yeah. Well, no, that's my wife talking to me.
Oh, okay.
But, the hindsight, of course, is always 20/20. But these are some decisions I've made over the years, poor decisions. I think many of us doctors have made these same decisions. But my hope through this discussion today is that hopefully we can keep others from making these decisions and open their mindset a little bit to be very intentional and strategic about how they're making decisions in their own practice.
Okay, I'm going to launch right in because I've been to your practice, and one of the first things I noticed is that you don't wear a white coat.
Yes, I wore a white coat for probably 12 years of practice until one day at lunch, one of my mentors looked at me and said, "Do you realize what that white coat is for?" Well, all doctors wear white coats.
Yeah, it says
part
doctor.
of the doctor. Yeah, I'm a doctor now. I'm wearing a white coat. And he says, "Well, who else wears white coats besides doctors?" I said, "I don't know. Who?" He goes, "Butchers." I go, "Butchers?"
What?
And he goes, "Well, why do you think butchers wear white coats?" So they get blood on them.
Oh, okay.
And so that makes sense in the world of medical doctors. As a surgeon, you don't get blood on you. As a chiropractor, if I'm getting blood on me, I got a problem, right? So I said, you know what? It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit with who I am. And so that day after lunch, I went back and threw away every white coat I owned. And that was the last I ever put one on. And why that is important is when I show up with patients, it's important that I'm authentic and I'm comfortable in my own skin versus trying to be something that I'm not.
So it doesn't give you an air of less professionalism. It's just more of this is who I really am.
Now, if a white coat is right for you, Doc, and that makes you feel great, fantastic.
Some people, it's like putting on the armor, don't you think, too? It's part of who you are.
Right. For me, it didn't fit. I never was comfortable in my own skin, and I just felt that I was being something I wasn't.
Okay, so what other things have you let go of that maybe were a really big deal when you first started?
Oh, there's the pursuit of more, the undisciplined pursuit of more. I thought more techniques I had, the more people I would attract. So there was a point in time in my practice where I said, I know 11 techniques, but really was a master of none. And again, one of my mentors said, you need to master one and be the best at that than anybody else. And when I subtracted all the other stuff, I would do flexion distraction, I would use this instrument, a little bit of vibration over here, throw them on this machine, then do this. It was just this potpourri of techniques that was not very scalable, number one, and replicable for the patient visits. So once I really turned my focus to really mastering the technique, I saw my practice grow.
And that ties into even some of the other things that you let go of too. Heat, ice, blankets, all the other things too were kind of a part of, I think, the earlier days for you.
Yeah, I held on a lot of sacred cows. Everybody had to go on a hydrobed or an intersegmental traction table. They needed heat before their adjustment, or ice and blankets over top, and things that aren't important. They didn't really contribute to the patient experience, but in my mind, they did. So when I got real clear about what the patient experience should look like, I was able to get rid of these things that didn't matter.
And do the patients miss that?
No. Okay, not true. One, whenever you make any change, you're going to get some pushback, but you've got to have that faith and commitment to what are you really trying to do. And if you look at it, let's use the hydrobeds, for instance. When people would come into the office, they would lay on them for 10 to 15 minutes before treatment. Well, I had a desire to serve more people. And really what people got the best benefit from was the chiropractic adjustment. So when I put my focus on the chiropractic adjustment and not 10 to 15 minutes of laying on a hydroped, I was able to serve more people in a day.
And that ties into as well, not adding so many services maybe into each patient as well. Kind of like, here's the show.
Right.
But more like, let's get you into health and let's move forward and get you back to your day.
As I did focus groups with patients, they came for usually one reason. And it was the chiropractic adjustment. Now, there's other services we still offer in our office, but we are really focused to make sure that is the main thing and that we're really good at creating that experience for the chiropractic adjustment that is fast, that's affordable, and most importantly, that's effective.
Let's talk a little bit about having multiple docs. How does that work, having so many doctors in the clinic?
Well, again, it's the undisciplined pursuit of more. I thought, okay, we'll put more doctors adjusting at the same time.
Run more people through.
I'm going to have more patients. Nope, we took the same amount of patients and we just spread it out amongst 4 doctors. At one point in time, we had 4 doctors. Now we see way more people, and we only have 1 doctor on the floor in each of our clinics at any given time doing the adjustments. So that became a real system question. And that was another one of the big mistakes of not having documented systems that were very clear on how we hire, a hiring system, our procedures, right down to every little thing of how a patient gets onto a table, how they get off, where they check in, how they check out, the language that we use. Also, all the systems for each one of our techs, our front tech, our exam tech, our docu-tech, systematizing every little aspect of the practice, which is really an E-Myth principle, and I'm a big fan of the E-Myth chiropractor written by Dr. Frank Savinsky. In order to serve your community at the highest level, to really have the most fulfilled practice, you have to systematize it.
Well, I think a natural tendency would be for a doc that doesn't have systems in place that you'll hire an office manager to do all that. Does that happen?
Yeah.
And is that good?
No. I hired an office manager going, okay, I can delegate. What ended up happening, I abdicated. And the difference between delegation versus abdication is I just said, here, you take it and you deal with it. All the stuff I didn't want to deal with. Well, it was a mistake. I got my finger off the pulse, didn't have my finger on our budget. Next thing you know, I had a financial problem. I was out of money. And right now, we have 4 offices getting ready to open a 5th. I don't have an office manager. I think sometimes in our heads, we think we need these office managers, that our offices are bigger than what they actually are. We are a small business. And doctor, you are the office manager.
That's good. Well, you talked about opening additional offices. Is there a time to do that? How do you know when you're ready to do that?
Well, I wasn't ready, and I opened one.
And what happened?
I lost $100,000.
Oh, bingo.
It was I think we all say, I want to have more than one practice. Not all of us, many people. That's an aspiring thing that I hear common with doctors. Well, I'm going to open another practice. And I was like that. I wasn't ready, didn't have the systems, didn't have anything in play, and it was a rough lesson. Now that we have 4 offices, we have those systems in play. It's easier. It's not easy, but it's easier once you have those systems in play.
So, Dr. Unruh, you're talking about documented systems, office manager, yes or no. We kind of talked about why maybe that isn't necessary. Talk about what it was like to not have a budget, because that seems to be a common problem from what I'm hearing. It's a problem with myself, to be honest, but how important is that, and what did you learn about budgeting?
Well, when I got my eye off the ball after the office manager mistake, I found myself in some financial hurt. So I dove into and said I'd never take my eye off that ball ever again. And the phrase that is used common with me and amongst my leaders on my team, what is not measured cannot be managed. So if you are not measuring with a budget, looking at your P&L, looking at the percentage of where you're spending your money in each one of those line items every single month, looking at where's your money fall to the bottom line. Also, are you commingling your money? One of my mentors, Dr. Douglas C., wrote a book called DC Money and taught me an account system of how all my money is spent every single month. I kind of feel broke every single month. But when I look at my different accounts of where it's going, it's intentional. My money doesn't control me. I control my money. And so when I really got focused on that, that made a big difference. Also, one of the other big mistakes was just working too many hours. I said, okay, I don't have my money. I'll just work more. And I'll just overwork everybody. And I think that works for a little while. And sometimes in life, in certain periods of life, that's necessary. But you can't sustain that. Just by working more versus working smart and working on the right things, big difference.
There would be fallout somewhere.
Fall somewhere.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate your transparency on the different things that have happened in your work history and the things that you've learned, because I know that it's going to help people in a huge way. So I have to ask the question, what's the biggest mistake you ever made? Is there one that really stands out in your mind?
Absolutely. This is one that was really brought to attention going through the E-Myth Chiropractor by Dr. Frank Savinsky and really being coached by him and his team of Dr. C and Dr. Thackeray. But there's a concept that he talks about of there's three personalities in every single one of us. There's the entrepreneur, and the entrepreneur is not about money. All the entrepreneur worries about is solving a problem, which in our world is decreasing the needless suffering that takes place in our community. There's the personality of the business owner, the manager, which all the business owner cares about is money. Can't do this for free. We got to make money. And then there's the last component of the technician. The technician is the chiropractor. The chiropractor that's offering the hope, doing the treatments every single day. What happens too many times is that after a number of years, the entrepreneur is snuffed out. That part of our behavior and our personality is snuffed out by the technician and the business or the manager.
The day-to-day.
And you just get stuck. In the E-Myth talks about just doing it. And when the technician takes over, there's no creativity there. And it just becomes the grind. The manager then is only worrying about the money. But what really needs to fuel this whole thing is the entrepreneur. Staying connected to that. So my biggest mistake is letting the manager and the technician take over within my mind and not being for strategic about work being an entrepreneur. So the practical step that they taught me to do is reorganizing my week. In a week of 24 clinical hours, I get to be the technician. During those 24 clinical hours, I'm going to be the best technician, and I'm offering hope and helping patients. There's going to be about 10 to 15 hours every single week that I'm going to work on my business, on the systems, looking at the bottom line, hiring, mentoring my team, developing leadership. But the best part is the entrepreneur stuff. The time each week that I spend on the dream, staying connected to that vine of why I got into this in the first place, the thing that gives me the juice to wake up every single morning. And once I organize my weeks very strategically, if you take a 40-hour work week and say 24 hours clinical time, 10 hours of manager time, and then the rest entrepreneur time, that's 40 hours. Now, if you want to do 50 hours, that's up to you. But if you start looking at it that way, that was a huge flip in me, changed my life, changed my world, changed my practice.
I appreciate so much you sharing these bad decisions that you've made over the years in the hope that it's going to be helping others do it better. So thank you so much. I'm PK, and I've been talking with Dr. Nathan Unruh. For more information, go to SIDECAREdge.com. Again, that's SIDECAREdge.com.